For decades, Canadians flying to the United States have been clearing U.S. customs here before touching down there.
The numbers are down. We're not sure we can make the numbers work anymore because this is pre-clearance is something that is done at the expense of the U.S. government.
The story began with a single flight departing from Washington, but its ripple effects quickly spread across the border. The U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hora, announced that Washington was considering a review of the pre-clearance security program at 8 of Canada's busiest airports, gateways that serve millions of travelers every year. On paper, it might sound like a small administrative change, but in today's political climate, it's anything but simple. As the number of Canadians flying to the US dropped sharply, Washington started questioning whether the program was still worth its cost. What was supposed to be a straightforward review now looks more like a political bargaining chip. Former diplomat Colin Robertson compared it to hurting yourself just to punish your opponent, a threat that could end up damaging both countries. Tensions have only grown as the US-Canada trade dispute reaches its boiling point. Now, family vacations and business trips risk becoming pawns in the same game as tariffs and trade retaliation. How far will this pressure campaign go? And that warning from Washington may only be the beginning. Tourism today isn't just about leisure. It's become a tool of soft power, an instrument in the broader game of economic influence. Every year, Canadian tourists contribute over $20 billion to the American economy, more than any other group of international visitors. But by July 2025, that once steady flow of money suddenly slowed. In a single month, more than 1.3 million Canadian visitors disappeared, sending shockwaves through airports, hotels, and shopping districts across major U.S. cities. Airlines were among the first to feel the hit. Routes from Canada to Las Vegas, once major profit makers, were slashed by Air Canada, WestJet, and Flair as passenger numbers dropped between 30% and 60%. Instead of reassuring travelers, Washington's threats only deepened the uncertainty. For many Canadians, visiting the US no longer felt like a simple vacation. It felt like a political statement. And that raises a bigger question. If even a weekend getaway can be politicized, where does the true power of ordinary consumers lie in their spending choices? Canceling a flight or delaying a vacation may seem like a personal decision, but in reality, it acts like a hidden tax, not imposed by governments, but by consumers themselves. The numbers make the story clear. Last year alone, Canadians made more than 20.4 million trips to the US, spending about $20.5 billion. But by 2025, experts predict that travel could drop by as much as 4 million trips, causing an estimated $4.3 billion loss in revenue. The pain won't be spread evenly either. States that rely heavily on Canadian visitors, like Florida, California, Nevada, New York, and Texas, are feeling it most. From theme parks and casinos to hotels and restaurants, everyone is beginning to notice the chill drifting down from the north. This disruption isn't just about numbers, it's about people and industries. Air Canada has already suspended 8 routes to the US because there simply aren't enough passengers to fill the planes. Every canceled flight and empty hotel room has become part of a much bigger picture, one where everyday consumer choices reflect the weight of international trade tensions. What began as individual families deciding to stay in Canada instead of visiting the US has grown into a wider movement. Skipping a US vacation is no longer just a personal preference. It's taking on a deeper meaning. For many Canadians, it's become a moral stance, even an expression of national solidarity. The Canadian government quickly recognized this sentiment, encouraging citizens to travel domestically and reinvest their spending at home. Airlines have followed suit, cutting US routes while expanding service to Mexico, the Caribbean, and Europe, where demand is rising. But the effects extend far beyond tourism. A new kind of consumer mindset is emerging. If the US uses tariffs as a weapon, Canadians are responding by supporting local goods, services, and destinations. Eating at a neighborhood restaurant or taking a weekend trip within Canada now carries symbolic weight, a quiet act of economic self-determination. The hardest hit areas are those along the border. communities that once thrived on Canadian visitors are struggling. In Vermont, the Kingdom Trails Network reported losing nearly half its Canadian members, while Jay Peak Ski Resort saw season pass sales drop by more than 30%. For small towns that relied on northern tourists, this isn't just a statistic. It's lost jobs, shuttered shops, and struggling family businesses. At Hill Farmstead Brewery, Canadian customers now face a 43% tax on beer brought back across the border, sharply cutting northern sales. Meanwhile, in Quebec, duty-free shops have seen their revenues plunge by nearly half, with some owners warning that up to 6 stores could close before the end of the year. Both countries now find themselves caught in the same trap. Canadian households are spending less as inflation rises, while US border towns lose one of their most reliable sources of income. The result is a feedback loop of economic slowdown, with no easy fix in sight. And through it all, Washington's threat to end the pre-clearance program has become a symbol of how fragile the relationship between the two economies has grown. For years, this system has allowed Canadian travelers to complete US customs and immigration at home airports, streamlining flights to 8 of America's busiest hubs. Now, even that convenience hangs in the balance. It's one of those quiet yet crucial pieces of infrastructure that keeps both countries connected. But now, even this seemingly technical arrangement has found itself caught in the middle of a political chess game. If Washington truly decides to withdraw from the pre-clearance program, the fallout won't land on just one side. Both nations would feel the pain. For the United States, losing pre-clearance would mean giving up an important layer of security and an efficient system for managing cross-border air traffic. For Canada, the consequences would be just as serious. Airports would face longer lines, disrupted flight connections, and the risk of losing their competitive edge as international travel hubs. Industry experts warn that the ripple effects could amount to billions of dollars in losses across trade and aviation services. That's no small risk. Canadian airlines and airports would see higher operating costs, more delays, and potential damage to the country's image as a smooth and reliable travel gateway. But the US wouldn't escape unscathed either. Removing pre-clearance could make it even harder to attract Canadian travelers, a market that's already shrinking fast. What Washington might view as a clever pressure tactic could easily backfire, worsening the very downturn it's trying to reverse. This entire dispute reveals a fascinating contrast: the visible power of governments versus the quiet influence of consumers. Tariffs have long been a traditional tool of political strategy, debated, legislated, and enforced to protect domestic industries or pressure trading partners. Recently, Washington expanded its own tariffs to cover everything from furniture and heavy trucks to pharmaceuticals, signaling a tough stance on trade. Canada's answer, however, came not through laws or official declarations, but through everyday choices. By cutting back on travel to the United States, Canadians have unintentionally created a new form of economic leverage. Informal, yet powerful. Each unbooked flight, empty hotel room, and canceled dinner reservation chips away at the billions that once flowed effortlessly into the American economy. What's striking about this trend is that it isn't government-led or centrally organized. It's organic, spreading through millions of personal decisions. Unlike tariffs that require political consensus, this soft boycott has emerged on its own, and it's proving surprisingly effective. This grassroots reaction has become a new kind of public-driven pressure, one that operates beyond the reach of formal policy, but is strong enough to shift the economic balance between two nations. Some early estimates suggest its impact could rival that of official trade sanctions. For communities that depend heavily on Canadian visitors, from vacation property markets and ski resorts to border town retailers, this isn't just a dip in statistics. It exposes a deeper vulnerability in the relationship between the two countries. That consumer behavior can be just as powerful as government policy. In this light, tourism itself has taken on a new role. It's no longer just about leisure or escape. It's become a subtle instrument of strategy. Every spending decision, once seen as casual, now carries symbolic weight, transforming into a form of personal expression with collective economic impact. While government negotiators argue over tariffs, quotas, and trade terms, It's the quiet decisions of ordinary travelers to stay home or choose a different destination that are reshaping the economic landscape. A weekend getaway, once trivial, now holds the power to influence the balance of an entire bilateral relationship. What used to be a simple vacation has evolved into a form of soft power, a new kind of leverage in an era of economic tension. Canadian travelers, once just part of the normal commercial flow, have unexpectedly become central figures in a quiet but powerful shift. And now the question is, which path will Canada take? Will it continue to depend heavily on the US market, accepting deeper economic ties? Or will it seize this moment to exercise a kind of deliberate resistance, a strategic pause that reminds both sides that every policy comes with a cost, both economic and human? Is tourism merely another industry under strain? Or has it become a new tool of public influence, proof that even the smallest choices can ripple across borders? If you found this story insightful, please subscribe to the Timefold channel, and don't forget to like. Your support helps us bring you more perspectives like this one.